Okay, so good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Assets Group update. This is the first of a little bit of a change in the way council do things. So today we're got live stream of a workshop. No minutes will be taken, but there's the opportunity to ask questions by those in the room as we go. We've got a fairly tight program, so please keep your questions to the point, and let's be started. So we start off on page 6, and I'll just go through page by page, and we've got officers on Zoom who can answer questions if those in the room can't. So moving first to property. Any questions on page 7? Page 8.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, are we not looking at page 6 for the moment at all?
Yeah, no, if you have something on page 6.
Well, I'm just wondering, we've got, it says at this meeting on 23rd of August, we've got this program and a total delivery now for the financial year of 77 million. And we then go on and say there's pressure on staff. There will need to be a trade-off between work delivered and service level expectations to try and resolve the budget mismanagement. I'm just wondering, when are we actually going to tackle this? Because to me, that the notion of doing $77 million worth of work this year, you're telling us it's unrealistic.
Perhaps we'll give the opportunity for.
Oh, sorry, mid-budget misalignment. Sorry, I didn't. Forgive me. I tried to resolve the budget misalignment. Sorry.
Right. So there's no need for an answer unless.
Three, Mr. Chair. The current program is certainly something that I think our newly elected council will need to have a good look at and work out what we can deliver in this year and what may need to be deferred to future years.
Thank you. Councillor Hopkins.
But if council should have a look at it, if it is, and it seems to me this is an issue that's getting bigger and bigger. We've discussed this at the council at PAR. When are we going to actually sit down and have a really hard, rigorous look at this?
Mr. Hope.
I've placed the challenge to the managers that I'm responsible for to actually come up with a realistic work program about what can be developed, what can be advanced, what really needs to be deferred. Probably, we could almost, start developing the carry forward list for the next year, and to have, that pretty robust conversation, probably developing the next annual plan, because I think that's where it'll get to. It's going to be, we're going to be brave enough to say certain things on the annual plan are either deferred completely, look and makes an assessment of the relative merits of projects that are underway versus ones that we'd scheduled for the third year of the long-term plan, and whether they should be essentially moved into the first year of the next one.
Councillor Tavendale.
I guess just to add to that, because I take your point, Councillor Hopkins, that there needs to be some certainty in things. But if you look, for instance, at 3 weather events we had, being one after the other, amount of workload in that, it takes time for our staff to get an actual idea of what that's even going to mean before you start on going back to the work program. So I think we also need to realise that we're operating in a human environment with some interesting factors.
And Mayor Kircher.
Yeah, I think, we definitely need advice from officers about what they think is achievable, taking into account that there's a lot of that work is being done in one department around water, and that can happen in parallel to other work, and understanding the dynamics around that is going to be really important, something that we need advice on. I think we'll see whether there's something comes back to us before the election. Otherwise, it might be post-election when the new council have their strategic session. It might be one of the topics that's discussed in more detail at that. So, hopefully we've got the opportunity to feed in before the election, or at least some recommendations perhaps, because if we've got, at least 4 new councillors afterwards, the benefit of knowledge around this table, some of that's going to be lost. So we'll see how it all works out. But it is a concern, and we want to make sure that we achieve as much as we can, but equally, don't burn people out or create mistakes and so on through trying to do too much.
Okay, moving on. Moving on to property. So page 7, 8.
Just on recreation, the vandalism. Just on recreation, the vandalism. Do we have costs on some of the on the vandalism that's been happening at the public gardens?
Yeah, good morning, guys. Hope you can hear me all right. I've first tested this for a while. No, we haven't got any firm costs, but I'm more than happy to investigate a bit further. Yeah, we'd have to look at what we've had charged to date. And I think we've still got a claim coming through, which should hopefully come through in August anyway.
Okay, thank you. I think it's really important that we and the community understand what vandalism has cost us, because in this latest case with the toilets at the gardens, having to cut up the concrete floor to fix the problem, I mean, it's pretty major. So yeah, it'd be good to know, and it certainly helps build the case for taking further preventative measures of some sort. Thank you.
Okay, continuing with recreation, page 9, Councillor Hopkins.
Yes, Mr. Chair, just with the reference to the fort and slide unit at Casanova Park. Lindsay, is that the small park quite close to Casanova House? It is, okay. Do we have, I'm just curious to know if we have use sense audits or any data as to the number of people who are using some of these smaller parks. If it is the one I'm thinking of, I wonder how much use it does get, and whether we have ever actually looked closely at use stats for parks.
Sorry, hopefully that's a wee bit better. So no, sorry, it was just a bit correction on Casanova Park. This is the one that's on Fleet Street that's up by Centennial Park. When we looked at this particular budget item, we actually did look at the demographics for different areas to make sure that was a new piece of equipment would be valuable in the area that it was. Now, some of the data I looked at was probably about a year ago, but it was still reasonably valid and reasonably accurate. So the numbers of kids in that area and the demographic of kids in that area was, this fort was is more designed for that particular age group anyway.
Any further questions?
Oh, no, I was just going to add a comment. I mean, it is a bit of a challenge about the use of many of the recreation facilities. It's sort of one way would be an in-person survey and actually observing behaviour, but anything like cameras or remote monitoring that does raise a number of privacy concerns, especially given the intended users. So it's generally more driven by, as Lindsay noted, demographics, having an appropriate sort of coverage area and appropriate use of resources. But I think it is something that I'm probably thinking more in particular of toilets, that getting a better idea of the actual use would be useful in terms of guiding future development of these facilities.
Thank you, Councillor Tavendale.
I was going to say, and toilets, probably consumables might give you that somewhat, but I just think, when we talk about how much playgrounds and things are being used, which is totally relevant, but I think we also need to go, strategically as a council, what are we trying to achieve? And, you know, if we're trying to sort of support the idea that our community needs to be fit, healthy, active, and, you know, working in with what we're trying to achieve with the hospital and looking at more holistic ways of, you know, treating our community and their health, then, you know, we also need to be mindful that the people that do use those parks and equipment to get them out and about and actually supporting healthy lifestyles should be a positive for us, and we need to be making any changes very mindfully.
Councillor Helen Lilly.
Yeah, thank you. I guess just following on from that, there was a survey that was undertaken of Sport Waitaki that analysed, you know, like the use of different playgrounds and things. And one of the findings was that a lot of families in the northern area weren't able to get to the bigger parks like the harbour playground. So I think being able to provide equitable facilities for those demographics is quite important as well. The closest park to that would be Roberts Park, and then after that Orana Park, and then the harbour park. So I think in terms of the space, you know, like in between, and just making things equitable. Otherwise, kids will be having to go to schools, playgrounds, to utilise those for those areas. So I guess that's just another perspective. Survey's already been done. There's some good findings in the Sport Otago survey.
Good. Any further questions on recreation?
No.
Councillor Percival.
Just on page 11 on the ATO, that's part of it. Why do we continue to maintain the track along the infield area? Every time there's any sort of indication, even a raindrop, it blows out. Why aren't we taking it out of that area and up on back, I'd say, to Burnside Road, rather than continue to keep repairing it along the straights there, Wairika? Just a question.
Question for Lindsay, first meeting. You're welcome to the chamber.
Right, that's fine. That infield section just going along the straights there didn't get too much particular damage in that area. There was a little bit of damage as a result of the creek coming up and over the area that was planted by Noslim. But the main area that got hit around that infield area was Eldersley, and there was a combination of factors there. We had the stream came up quite a bit. There was a side stream that contributed to that, and there was also blockage on some culvert pipes through the farmland through that area. So one of the key things we want to do moving forward is try and make sure that we're working with the farmer and with the maintenance contractor to make sure that those blockages don't occur, and that should limit sort of damage. But in saying that, what we want to do as part of this repairs and maintenance, we'll be doing a MIMBI application to the government, and we will be trying to look at more resilient work, you know, to protect those assets a little bit more. The comments we've had back from the maintenance contractors, some of the work done in the past has actually been very beneficial, and so we're not getting a lot of repeats of areas getting damaged time and time again. It just seems to be moving to different spots. So yeah, it's just something we've got to work through, Guy.
Thank you. Any Councillor Williams?
My question is just on page 10, the Thames Street tree lighting project. I'm just worried that we might be overcomplicating this one. I'm pretty sure the budget for that's somewhere around $60,000, and it says in here that that's only enough to allow a few trees to be lit up. It just seems a little bit steep for a few trees, but surely there's lots of other places that have done this, and so I hope we're sort of reaching out and checking in and seeing how other councils did it. I remember last time there was a problem with potentially getting power to the middle of the road, but surely there's parking meters in the middle of the road with power, so we could sort of feed in with those. But it's a bigger project than just lighting up the trees on the main street. It's about getting traffic off State Highway 1 and coming down towards our historic area and discovering what we've got down there. So I can see we've been sort of on looking at getting it done for a couple of years now. So I'm just, if we can't do it, maybe we could look at outsourcing it to someone that can achieve it.
Who would like to answer this?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. Generally when a council decides to do some street lighting on some trees, it's conducted at a time when streetscaping is actually occurring. So a lot of the costs of actually installing those lights on trees are actually hidden within the streetscaping costs. We have been looking at a number of different ways to get power to those trees, including using some of the existing power that's already there. It doesn't appear as though what's there would be enough to light up many of them. We'd have to do some additional installations, some additional trenching. There'd be some costs from from Network Waitaki as far as development contributions as well. It's a project that I'm hopeful we can still do, but perhaps integrate it with some other streetscaping works as well.
Yeah, thank you. I think this is something that is right up the alley of Network Waitaki and working together as we do on numerous projects, I think is an opportunity. So, yeah, it's something where you talk further with Josh and others, but to have a discussion with Network Waitaki around, is there something we can do to make this work and, get the effect that we're really after.
Thank you. I'm conscious of the time and we've used half of ours already. So if there's no further questions, Councillor Towndale, certainly.
Just quickly on page 9, page 10, sorry, with the Kakanori toilet. And I understand the issues there with no agreement on site. I guess I just want some assurance that if the community do come up with an option that seems well supported, that it won't be a massive drama to get it back onto a timetable somewhere. I'm just worried that if we put it here saying it's on hold, that the budget might disappear and it might be a whole new battle one day.
If I could just give an update, we went to the last Kakanori Ratepayers Improvement Society meeting along with Councillor Percival, and we had discussions. So the next step is that group is going to be inviting the hall committee to come and speak with them around the potential location of toilet at the back of the hall. It's been proposed in the past and there's been some resistance, but I think just the opportunity to get around the table together and actually sort out, is there a way to do it that's not interfering with neighbours and is going to be secure. So there's some action that's going to happen there and hopefully we'll lead to a solution.
Thank you. And Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, look, just on page 11 under roading, I wonder if somebody could explain to me. I've got two questions. I don't understand. There's 4 bullet points, and we're saying that the central government directions and changes are challenging us to keep up with starting the 2024-27 National Land Transport Program funding and supporting documents. So my question, what does that mean? And bullet point 4, the Transport Choice Package Expressions of Interest is a $350 million work package for a variety of reasons. Are we putting in an expression of interest?
Through you, Mr. Chair. The National Land Transport Program is more or less how we apply for funding for our co-subsidy from Waikikitahi, as well as for our co-subsidy. For both capital and operational works. In alignment with that, we need to prepare a number of business cases to support our applications. All of that takes quite a bit of time. It's quite an onerous process. So we're just highlighting there that we're actually needing to start more or less our funding applications now to be able to get those together so that we meet the required deadlines. In regards to the Transport Choice Package Expressions of Interest, yes, we are anticipating putting in an expressions of interest. We were made aware of that program roughly 3 or 4 weeks ago, and it closes in 2 days. It's an incredibly tight time frame to apply for that funding, which has been a bit of a challenge.
Is it planned to tell us or let us know what we're saying before it goes in?
So the projects that we're putting forward in that one were all projects that were denied through the last NLTP that we put forward through the LTP. So they're already projects that have had community consultation on them. Given the short timeframes, we haven't had an opportunity to have a workshop with council to determine that they want to proceed with those projects. But we thought as a best bet, the items that were already in the LTP probably were fairly safe, but we can bring those forward again.
Yeah, gotcha.
Pass this on to the roading manager with some suggestions, and one of them was around public transport in Oamaru and between Oamaru and Western and Kakanui. And I'm not sure where that got to. I've actually got it on the council briefing list to discuss it in more detail today, because I think it's something that is really important. I wrote back to Waka Kotahi and asked for an extension of time because, at that stage we were in the midst of some of our flooding events and so on. Our staff were flat out with those things, and very helpfully, Waka Kotahi said, no, you've got 4 weeks in total, and you've got to put it together in that time. So it's been fairly typical of what's been happening, where we've had to try and jump to the beat of their drum and just not have sufficient time to do a quality job. But I'm sure the team are putting things together. Mr. Harrison had said about getting some councillors together and so on, so that was going to be the point of the discussion this afternoon, but it might be a slightly different discussion because I hadn't realised deadline was closing in quite so quickly. But it was something we will talk in further detail. Thank you.
Okay, so any further questions on roading now, or just Councillor Hopkins?
Yes, Mr. Chair, 2 very quick ones. The event recovery figure, all the damage, and the roading team are to be congratulated for what they and the contractors did in response. But the reference here is that the cost is estimated at greater than 1.5 million. So my question is, do we have a final figure? And on the next page, the award-winning radio commercials, out of curiosity, because I've never heard them, what stations have they been played on?
Through you, Mr. Chair. No, we don't yet have a final figure of that 1.5 million. At the moment, that's kind of a ballpark estimate. We're still trying to work our way through what it's going to cost us. And this is on, of course, the proviso that we don't receive further damage from our next lot of rain coming through. In regards to the radio stations, I believe they've picked up on a number of major radio networks, but I can't specifically name them, sorry.
Perhaps we can come back on that one. Anything further on roading? If not, let's move on to water. Questions, we're on page 13 or further. Any questions? A fairly full report. And obviously it's explained, there's no questions. Councillor Hopkins.
On page 14, Mr. Chair, I'm just curious about the wording, the reference to the Orwell Street pump station. The last sentence is operations are investigating protection works in conjunction with Kiwi Rail to try and retain the asset, i.e. the Orwell Street pump station. We've visited the site. That makes it sound, is it as critical as that to try and retain? That makes it almost sound like a 50-50 proposition.
Yeah, I can answer that through the chair. So currently Kiwi Rail use that as access for their container delivery. They have another option of using a different entranceway, but they prefer to continue to use that access way. So the option for us is to leave it as wide as it was, or to actually armour it back closer to the Orwell Street soil pump station, and for us to access off Orwell Street as a part from where we currently access off the coast.
Thanks, Marty. Does that answer your question?
Well, I think Marty's answer makes it sound a little less grim than the wording in the sentence. That's all. And thank you, Marty. Thank you very much.
Right, now we did see that there is some extreme damage. Okay, any further questions with regard to water? If there aren't, we can move on to our next workshop. And people and culture.
Sorry, just a closing comment and following up on the comment that councillor Tavendale made about the Kakanui toilets. Yeah, I mean, and going back to probably the opening comments, and you know, our absolute intent is not to sort of lose track of projects, but to go through a process of making a decision about whether a project proceeds or not, just not forget about them and let them drop off a list, because that's not good for any of us to lose track of these things. Yeah, and I think that, you know, that's certainly a commitment that all officers will make to make sure that if something doesn't proceed, it's because there has been a decision to actually stop the project or delay it and reschedule it, rather than just lose track of it. Because we've made commitments to the communities, and we really, like you, want to be able to carry those out.
Thanks, Mr. Hope. I think citing toilets always takes a little bit of time.
Just
Okay.
painting them's even worse.
All right, good morning. We've got the people and culture update, and we've got Chloe here today in place of Mrs. Bailey, who's not here. And I'm not sure who we've got. I've got Jenny Bean online. That may be all, I'm not too sure. And Francis. Right. So we'll take it page by page. Councillors, if there's any questions on page 16 or 17. Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, man, just out of curiosity, on page 7, well, not more, it's more than out of curiosity, the rates rebates figure, essentially $500,000 has gone from the Department of Internal Affairs to the 809 people who applied here and were approved. Do we know how many people applied but were not approved? I mean, okay, 809 people got it. How many missed out? Do we know?
So,
Yeah, it's generally a very small number. Especially as we sort of actually go through, because they need to engage with an officer to actually put the application through. So, once the action goes through, a very, very small number are declined. And most people are aware of the criteria. And once we run through those, people might not be eligible, but very few are actually declined if they are eligible.
yes, it's great to see that support coming in. Councillor Thompson.
I just have a question on dogs, which I think is very appropriate in the cultural section. I have had interaction with ratepayers who have received contact after the fact of saying that they hadn't paid, when in fact they had, but it had been over that weekend transaction. And I just wonder whether maybe something was done on a Friday when it could have been done a couple of days later, and would have saved me getting an earful.
Mr. Cook or Mr. Hope, who wants that? Mr. Cook.
Thank you. Through the chair, Councillor Thompson. I can't speak on what happened on particular days, I'm afraid, but there's the dog renewal program has many steps to it. So it starts with the letter in June where they get advised that dog registration renewal is required. They then get a text message in July, provided we have a number which we can text them on. They then get a letter in August which advises them that they've missed it and that penalties will now start to apply. They then get a phone call to say that they haven't actually registered their dog and could they please do it. And from the 1st of September, we will commence site visits to confirm whether there is a dog on site. And then from mid-September, infringements will come into play for failing to register their dogs. At the end of at the deadline for renewal, we had circa 230 that were still unregistered. There's significant effort by officers to get people over the line. And yes, something may have been triggered on a Friday, which then resulted in a letter arriving on Monday when they'd actually paid by online banking on a Saturday. We'll look out for that next year. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, councillors, anything else up to page 17? Go to page 18 and on to the library. Page 19. I just want to say the breadth of activities happening in the library are pretty incredible, really, and a bit of a pat on the back to staff. I think that they're doing a pretty great job in there. Right, up to page 20. And does Mayor Kircher want to talk about his award he received? He doesn't want to.
Thanks. Oh, no, thank you. Sorry, I'm just dealing with something else.
It's nice to know you're actually committed to the meeting there.
Right. Anything else up to end of the library report? Okay, we'll move on to the Opera House. Councillors.
Yeah, under the project, the Opera House is looking, preparing for the October school holiday program. I'm just curious to know if anyone, this is simply curiosity, but this reference to a mime artist, Thomas Monckton, being an artist in residence for 10 days, having studied at New Zealand Circo Arts and also the theatre school at Le Coq in Paris. What will he be doing? I mean, I'm fascinated and captivated, and I might even, yes, I know he's going to do mime, for heaven's sake. Yes, I know all that, but I'm just curious to know how the artist in residence program will work for the 10 days.
I'll pass over to Mrs. McElhenney if she's.
Yes, thank you for that question. That's so what Tom will be doing is he's preparing for a performance in the Dunedin Arts Festival, and his parents actually live locally and he's based mainly in Finland, but he's come over for the festival, so it gives him an opportunity to have the space here, and he will be running a workshop while he's here. So it's just an opportunity. He is using the space at no charge, but they're dark days anyway, so there's no lost revenue, and it's good opportunity to have a workshop at no cost.
Fantastic.
Hmm.
Right, Councillor Harley.
Just on page 22, just a thank you to Francis and the team for bringing the festival that we're looking forward to in October, the Boy Called Piano. I think it's good timing with the Royal Commission of Inquiry into state abuse at the moment, just to kind of highlight those issues that a lot of our children across the country have gone through. So thank you for bringing that to town.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, anything else up to page 22? We'll move on to page 23, the Forester Gallery.
Numbers are looking good, Madam Chair. Visitor numbers are on the chart there, they are good.
Right, anything else there on up to, we'll go to page 24. 25. Up to the museum and archive. Sorry,
On page 26, the museum figures are later and the gallery figures we've seen. I'm just curious to know why the archive is so low. Yes, higher in 2020, obviously, then a long period of closure, so people lose contact. But now that it's open again, I would have thought should be getting better numbers. And I'm just wondering, do we have any explanation as to why? Should we be marketing, promoting the service and access better?
I'll let Chloe answer.
Through the chair, I think there's probably three factors, and it would possibly require a little more investigation to untangle which of the three is the most important. One of them is simply a change in staff from curator Chris Meach to Ellie Dunkley, and they may be doing slightly different things in terms of what's being recorded as an inquiry. It's possible that maybe simple inquiries might be being just answered rather than logged in the system. Increasingly online access proactively for people through things like the Culture Waitaki website, where people can answer their own questions. So that won't be coming into our system as an inquiry, because people can search for the rates database themselves, for instance, historically, cemetery records, which we used to get a lot of inquiries for on the council website. And the third factor will be what you've pointed to after a period of closure and change in the building, will be marketing that the facility is operational. And once we've got the archive fit out complete, we will certainly be doing that and having some open days and so forth.
Thank you, Chloe. Right, councillors, any other questions? Sorry, councillor King.
Chloe, could you just enlarge a little? I think I know the answer, but the collection moratorium, just where it's at and where it's likely to be in the future.
Through the chair, thank you very much for that question, councillor Kingan. I'm hoping once we reopen the museum later this year to then be able to come back to council to lift that moratorium. It's been in place for a number of years. I think it first started under Director Rowan Carroll in relation to issues with storage at the museum and archive. And myself and the team have been working through those, obviously with the refit, but also through retention and disposal of archives and so forth. And once we've got the building work out of the way, I look forward to bringing a report to council to have that moratorium lifted.
Great. Okay. Any other questions up to page 27, councillors? Okay, up to 29. Just moving on to the governance. Right, so that's the end of the report. There was no other questions to the report. Right, well, thank you, Chloe. Appreciate it. And we're going to move on to the Heritage, Environment and Regulatory Group. We've got Roger here, and I'm not sure who we've got. We've got Andrew Bardsley online. Not sure if there's anybody else. That's all. All right, so we'll take this page by page as well, councillors. So just on the first two pages, 30 and 31, is there any questions? And 32 and 33. And the final page, 34. Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the very bottom of that page, the reference to MB asking for feedback on issues with the current building consent system. We've got 4 different areas there that they want a feedback or response upon. Has there been or will there be feedback from us, and what will it be?
Mr. Cox.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councillor Hopkins, as the bottom line does say, that officers are currently drafting feedback. My understanding is that has been circulated to elected members for review. To date, we have not received anything back from elected members. We have a officers workshop, I believe it is Thursday, it's either tomorrow or Thursday, I can check that, where we can put on a Zoom facility if you wish to contribute. The document will be finalised and sent to MB on Friday, close of business, because it shuts on Sunday. That's extensive documentation. The MB information was circulated to elected members when it first came out, and the draft response has been circulated to elected members, I believe.
Governance advisor, would you like to add something there?
Yes, the review of the building consent system Waitaki District Council submission has been in a convened review room since the 24th of August, and the feedback is required by 5 o'clock tonight to Victoria. So it is in a convened review room. Okay, thank you.
Apologies, I missed it.
Mr Cook.
I would like to point out that this is the first round of feedback. There will be a formal consultation program with MB once they get into changing the Building Act. So it's not our last opportunity.
Yeah, I took a lot of guidance myself from staff on that because I didn't feel I had a lot to add. Just on the Enviro Schools teachers, Hui, just looking at the program as a whole, whether or not there's some stage we can have a look at what we're doing currently and see if it's something we want to grow. I just recognise we've got that opportunity made available to a number of schools, and there's a lot of schools that aren't currently part of the program that personally I think would benefit from it. And I just wonder what triggers us re-looking at the membership and how we do that.
Yes, certainly through the chair, we would welcome the opportunity to revisit that. The waste levy rebate budget is looking reasonable at the moment, so we'd certainly be able to look at expanding that, I'm sure.
Fantastic. Councillor Halalei.
Well, probably on that, it might be helpful to approach the two kahui ako. So there's two in the whole Waitaki area, and that's a collection, a network of all the schools. So that could be another avenue just to help get that messaging across and then encourage participation.
Fantastic. Right, so if there's nothing else on that report, councillors. Sorry, Councillor King.
Just going back to the district plan. The feedback is due in by tomorrow for those that wish to. How much by way of feedback has there been?
We might take David Campbell's input on that one.
Thank you.
Sure, thank you, Councillor Kingan. We are getting it in thick and fast at the moment. So on our feedback platform, there's been about 120 or 30 pieces of feedback come through, and we can probably more than double that for the emails as well. So it's kind of two main platforms. One is the feedback tool, one is just direct email. So it's getting up probably over 300 now, we suspect. So pretty busy this morning. I think Caitlin had about 20 odd emails come through this morning. So it's good to see.
Yeah, I think it's been really good, the amount of reminders and bits and pieces that have been out in the community. Certainly been well canvassed out in the community. Cool. Well, if that's all, then that's this part of the meeting sorted, and it's finance and corporate development, which I think is that me, Kurt, you're going to share that. So swap around again.
Okay, bit of musical chairs going on. It's always interesting when you try new things and see how it all goes. But I think the benefits of having all of these items in one go, I think is proving to be quite beneficial from an update point of view. So we will go to the finance and corporate development group. So we've got the people we need online. Mr. Hope.
You've got me, and I can.
We've got Mr. Hope, so we're all good. Okay, so we'll kick on. We are a bit ahead of time, but that's a good thing. So okay, going through. So the first page is page 35. Is there anything on there? Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, thank you, Mick. Just picking up on your, before I ask the question here, but picking up on the comments you just made, you're right about this being really helpful. One thing that might be a refinement could be that this meeting should possibly have power to recommend to council in matters of should there be something that might need. If we do end up meeting fortnightly, it might be fruitful for that to be an element built into this, but that's something we can consider later, I think.
Well, just very quickly on that. I mean, it won't be the power to recommend, but I mean, basically, it's giving officers suggestions for report to what you're talking about. We can do it and ask officers to to bring something through. And I think generally if they think there's good support from the room, then they could do so. But it would be only just suggestions.
Okay, just the 2021-22 annual report, considerable progress has been made towards completion, must be available for audit review by the 30th of September. Will it be available for audit review by the 30th of September?
Yes, it will be. And again, that will bring a draft of the report to the final council meeting for this group of elected members to have a look at it. We're just a bit of an update on that. We've been informed by Audit New Zealand that our audit is now likely to take place in January and February of next year rather than this year. They continue to face severe resource constraints, so shifting a number of audits out past the current statutory deadline. So really the accountability sits with them about late delivery rather than us, but we are on track to deliver our components by the original timeframe, not a revised timeframe.
Yeah, I disagree with the excellent. I mean, it's poor management. You know, we've been telling Audit New Zealand and the Auditor General that, you know, there are problems with the system. They can't recruit the people they need. That they spend a lot of time going through things which actually are relatively meaningless and don't always get the things that are actually much more important. The problem is they've given us a time where actually our staff have been working really hard, or you know, and have spent their time leading up to Christmas getting the annual plan information all sorted and so on, so it's ready for the new year. That's when they want to do the audit, and so the opportunities for staff to take leave during that time is going to be severely restricted. That's you know, so we at the moment we've got a plan around that, and hopefully they can actually stick to whatever the dates they give us. But yeah, I'm just on behalf of staff, I think it's really on the nose that that they're not doing the job. Yet they're there to make sure we do ours.
Yeah, look, I wasn't aware of that, and I think it's important that that matter be aired in public. What I meant when I said excellent, we've had issues in the past delivering the plan on time, and Paul has said we're going to absolutely meet the tests, meet the deadlines, and deliver as required, and that is a credit to us.
Yeah,
and it's most unfortunate that audits ineptitudes problems is going to impact on the well-being of people here. If what you say about leave is correct, that's really very sad.
No. Okay, no, thank you. Anything else? Page 35, page 36.
Yes, yeah. Look, a couple of questions. I'm just curious about the two things. The example of the disclosure with regard to water rates for the property in 4th Street. I presume the rateable value of that property would have a bearing on those rates. So that's a question, or is that a uniform? It's not a UAGC, is it? And the other question I had was down the bottom, the total number of rates struck. If you read that correctly, well, it could be interpreted to mean that we've got 3,700 more rate paid. So which would be extraordinary. Well, if you look, 2022 total rate struck 40,805 as against 2021 37,108. So I mean, is there an explanation for that?
Explanation for the first comment: water supply and wastewater are both a series of fixed charges, whereas stormwater is within a capital value based rate. So that's the only part that would vary from property to property, and that's pretty much across the rating system across the district. Sorry, the total rate struck in terms of the 37 to 40. That shows the movement of. So that's probably should have a dollar symbol, which it does in the column above it. probably more illustrates that the very good job of holding the rates in the 3 years prior to that. And really why see that type of movement in the 22 year is really given that it was almost the same level of the 3 years before that.
No, I'm not sure, sorry.
Okay, anything else? Okay, go to the next page, page 37.
Sorry, very quickly.
Go for it, Councillor Hopkins.
Who attended the Sharma, it says here the Sharma Ethnic Women's Trust delivering a range of services, cultural safety training, support for family violence. Workshops are fully subscribed with 50 participants. Who was it, us or outsiders or both?
So ask Helen Algar to respond to that one. Morning, Helen.
Good morning, everyone. Through the chair, yes, it was a mixture of providers, including police, social service providers, and council was also provided with an opportunity to attend. Not sure that we actually had anyone from council in the first session, but in the second session, we did have one council person attend. So it was a fantastic opportunity and one that we will be bringing back.
Thank you. And Councillor Halalele.
Yeah, just on that, thank you, Helen, for organising that, because I've heard a lot of positive feedback from a lot of frontline workers that are working in social services, and I know my team had undertaken that, and it helped enhance their practice in the community. So those types of workshop opportunities are really important, just to help grow our capability around the sector. So thank you.
Okay. Page 38. Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, look, just hats off to the Mayor's Task Force for Jobs. The total number of young people placed in employment, full-time, part-time or casual, to over 70. If we include the previous contract, then good news about the 65 placed in the 23 in apprenticeships in this period. Fantastic.
Yeah, it's certainly proving very successful, and I think, you know, there's around close to 30 councils taking part in this. Our model's a bit different to many of them, but I think it's proving to be very successful for us, and that's the beauty of it. Funding without strings attached as far as how you do things, but just an expectation of outcomes, and we're certainly meeting those. Just hope.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if it's in there, but I think probably the greatest feature of what the team's managed to achieve is the retention rate within the roles. That it's, you know, it's not just a matter of getting a person in a role, it's actually maintaining them in the role, or at least keeping them engaged in the program. And I think that has as you said, the approach we've adopted very much has a strong pastoral care content to it, and that's really making a difference in terms of that retention rate.
Very true. And the acknowledgement of the coordination, that role, the managing role that Helen has, and making it work. You know, she's dealing with a number of different agencies to make it happen, and it's obviously working very well. So thank you, Helen, for that. Anything else on page 38, 39? Councillor Tavendale.
Just on the child and youth mental health review, I think it's quite telling how strong our networks currently are with Safer Waitaki and with the Mental Health and Addictions Network. That's making really good inroads, and I think it's got us really well positioned for this kind of review. So just want to acknowledge the work that has been done leading up to this, because you know, the being recognised by reviewers in this kind of area is at the end of a whole lot of work that we don't actually see.
Thank you. Councillor Halalele.
Just wanted to mention just a couple of things about the housing strategy actions, and thank you, Helen, for facilitating the last housing task force meeting. It was a really good forum just to hear from all the different agencies and those that are interested in supporting this initiative and developing the action that falls out of the strategy, and that there are a lot of community providers out there that are willing to to help support in it. It doesn't necessarily need to take a lot of council resource in terms of personnel time, but we can help facilitate those opportunities. And I know that there are some financial capability and home ownership type workshops that are happening in the community over the next week or so. So that's just something just to include in one of the action points that fall out of the objectives of the housing strategy.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, Helen, can you tell us a bit more about Hine Ora, the Warrior Princess program, and what transformation it's aimed to deliver?
Certainly can. So Hine Ora Warrior Princess is aimed at girls from the ages of 8 upwards, and it's a program that helps it's a kaupapa Māori program, but it's actually available for students from all backgrounds and ethnicities. And it's a program that builds their self-esteem and their confidence. So schools would choose, I guess, those students who would most benefit from that program. So we've been fortunate to get some funding from ACC to run a pilot in the Waitaki. That pilot is underway currently. They've had their first week and it's gone extremely well. The 2 schools involved are rural schools, Totara and Western School. I think around 15 students are participating, years 7 and 8, for this particular pilot. If the pilot's successful, and we know it will be, it has been in Timaru, then we will be looking at further funding so that we can continue the program in other schools, but also train the trainer so that we have a couple of people trained locally to be able to deliver this program going forward. And it is one of the components, Councillor Hopkins, that we have identified that we need to deliver to provide some of the outcomes around our child and youth mental wellbeing work. So it's a fantastic opportunity and a great program.
Thank you very much. Helen, is there anything else? Okay, we'll close that one off. What we'll do now is we'll take a break for morning tea. We'll come back at 10:10. And if we're able to quickly deal with the development contributions committee decisions and also the district licensing committee update, and that will get us back on time for the information services at 10:20. So back here at 10:10. Thank you very much.
Report. There's a public document, but it hasn't been shared in the ASIC. I still think, I mean, saying you better to hold. Keep our powers on until we're.
Yep. Yeah. Okay, welcome back, everybody. Just a reminder to anyone who was watching the live stream that the agenda, if you haven't downloaded it already, is available on council website on the meeting information page. So will probably make more sense with the discussions if people have that. So we're going to shoot through now to 1.8 development contributions decisions made under delegated authority. So we have a committee that looks after development contributions and any appeals of the assessments goes to that committee. So we've got that there and it's on page 56. So do we have any questions? Councillor Hopkins?
Yeah, sorry, look, just one. There's a reference to the fact that there were two decisions or recommendations to council. One, Pukeuri Oamaru Road and Gordon Street Western. I thought there was a third one relating to DCs at the north end. I'm just wondering why it isn't in there, that's all.
Okay, we don't have Mandy McIntosh online, so she won't be able to respond to that one at the moment, but Councillor Thompson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think you'll find that the Pukeuri Oamaru Road one is the one that you're referring to.
Mr. Hope.
Yeah, I would agree. That was the potential sort of community housing development.
No. No, I'm not. I can't recall whether the matter. I think it was. It may have been in the. I can't recall whether it was in public excluded or in public meeting. But a report did come to us relating to an industrial matter pertaining to DCs, which would have been the third one.
Okay, I'll follow up on that outside the workshop.
Probably the only other comment I'd make is it wasn't overly informative, not knowing what the actual decisions were. You know, the details not there, and you know, whether we have a separate discussion on whether there should be some there, but something to have to talk about. Okay, anything else? Okay, right, we'll move to the District Licensing Committee updates, which is page 59. So any questions on that? So quite a bit of activity in that area, and chair of the District Licensing Committee, the DLC, is Councillor Hopkins. So Councillor Hopkins, do you have anything to add?
Well, just two things. Just that the level of public opposition to applications for licenses or renewals or the like remains very, very low, and there's been a very limited number of public hearings because objections are so few and far between. Just so that councillors know, that there is a reference to the fact that there's a whole lot of decisions on the papers, some made by a few made by Barry, where the decision involves council applications. There were 249 decisions. When they're made on the papers, there's basically no one's objected, there's no complaint, the police are happy, the Ministry of Health's happy, and the chair goes through them, double checks that everything's done and signs them off. That's just what the rule, that's how it's done. So it's not, it's just, that's what the law requires. So I think the significant thing is there don't appear to be any major issues, and there is not a high level of public concern about who is getting licenses and how they're being used, although there was a reported sting activity recently.
Mr. Cook.
Just through the chair, as secretary of the DLC, we've now had our final meeting. I'd like to thank the council representatives who sit on that, and particularly Councillor Hopkins, who does handle a majority of these decisions and has turned those decisions around in a very short space of time. So I'd like to thank him for that.
No, it's good. It's one of those jobs we're required to do, and it's important that we do it well, and equally that we do it efficiently. So that's good. Thank you. Councillor Taverneau, do you have a question? No? Okay. Right, we'll move on to information services and systems group update on page 40. Okay, well, we'll get we'll see how far we can get on this. Just double check what the time is. We're only a minute away from when it was scheduled to start. So do we have well, Mr. Hope, do you want to say anything at all and just introduce this, or we go straight to the questions?
I think we go straight.
Excellent. Just checking. Okay, page 40. Is there anything there? Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, well, I'm just curious if anyone can help me. Business continuity, where is currently on hold pending receipt of approval from Microsoft for additional funding up to $10,000 has been applied for as a one-off payment for implementation of cloud infra. Who are we applying for American dollars from? Is that Microsoft Foundation, or what's that all about?
Okay. I was sure Mr. Hope was going to be able to answer that, but perhaps, well, we can't. So the governance advisor.
If I may make an interim answer to that, the IT manager is on his way up and he's going to answer that because I was with him when he wrote it. Thank you.
Okay, so we just welcome the IT team to the chamber. So Scott, we just had a question on the business continuity and the application to Microsoft for additional funding. So Councillor Hopkins was just wondering what the details were around that.
So when we went with Microsoft as our partner for the cloud solution for business continuity, they have a funding option if we use them, which works out to be about $10,000 US. So we thought when we were putting the project in, it will take a significant cost off our internal budgets to be able to do that. So we applied for that funding, which is just waiting through the final signature.
So if I interpret that correctly, essentially Microsoft were pitching for the business and offering a $10,000 US discount if we went with them rather than another provider. And what we've now done is said, can we have the $10,000 you offered us, please?
So it's not a guaranteed thing. It is an incentive it's basically to allow you to fund the resourcing. So they would normally charge you for these services, whether you apply for the funding or not. It just is an incentive to use them.
Okay, anything else on that page? Get moved to the second page. Page 41, anything there? 42.
Oh, yes, sorry, look, I don't understand this. The telephony and contact centre upgrade business case was approved by the executive leadership team. Due to departure, the project is now on hold. We're now looking for a contract. And everything else is on hold as well. So that's pretty alarming. But what's the issue with the telephony and contact centre upgrade? If everything's been approved, surely it's a matter of unpacking the stuff and plugging it in.
The good old days. Yeah, probably a little bit more involved than that. But Mr. Chow, do you want to respond to that one? Thanks, Bill.
Thank you. So this is the one of the higher priority project for us because we try to include some of the other part of the council, like the aquatic centre, like the other areas of the council into this project. Why it's currently listed here is because the reason I just mentioned and the reason that the PM just mentioned, we're still in the process of looking for a contract PM to carry on this project. This has higher priority than the other ones that's not listed.
Isabel.
Yeah, so I just would like to add that we are talking about applications, so we are talking about software. And although it is approved, we need to have defined the requirements. So we need to have, and this is part of a project implementation. So the requirements for the implementation needs to be set before the implementation is done. So this is not a piece of hardware that we just install and have it working. So there are a list of requirements that need to be defined. And that is part of the tasks that the project manager does. And that is the role that we don't have at the moment.
Thank you, Isabel. Also, just want to add.
Isabel, can you just turn your microphone off? Thanks. Thank you.
Just also want to add, yeah, thank you, Isabel. The project management and implementation actually is a very big task. It's not just buying a piece of software, chuck it in. It's actually involves because all department of the council, it has a lot to do with proper change management because we like to minimize the impact to the staff members and we want to ensure a smooth transition. So a project manager who's very experienced and who's got change management and everything coordination, that will ensure the successful implementation and the smooth running of the project.
Thank you very much. I think this underlines the problem we've got. We've had a number of staff depart from the IT area, and it has been a situation of juggling the projects to the point that actually just I'm sure the team's spending their time on the day-to-day problems and not able to do that project management in the same sort of way. So we there's obviously recruitment underway and hopefully we get the positions filled as quickly as possible. Is there anything else on IS? Okay. Oh, thank you very much. Coming up, thanks for the explanations, and Mr. Mill, all the best for your imminent departure and your new shift and your changing career. So thank you. Okay. We now go to 1.6, the Economic Development and Communications update, and we welcome to the chamber Mel Jones. And Mel, if you could, yep, no, that's all good. Just getting organised. If you just could move the chair over so it's not on the camera at the moment. So if you could go that way, that'd be great. Okay, so welcome along. We're just basically going straight to questions unless you've got anything to introduce first. No, so we'll take it as read. Okay, councillors, so we're on page 43. Any questions on that one? 44. Councillor Kingan.
Yeah, look, I just want to highlight the fact that Waitaki's economy grew more than most, but the figure that really bounced out for me was on the next paragraph below when they talked about the global dairy prices and just how much that means to our district. That's the huge figures.
Yeah, no, again, the importance of agriculture to our economy is very significant. And whilst we look to diversify, it's it's very hard to make, or very important that we never forget that just the important part that it plays. And just looking at this, I know it's election time and so on, but the district is actually going well, and I think it's good to acknowledge that because unfortunately it becomes political and people say it's not doing well, but actually a lot of people are working hard to out in the community to make sure that things are going as well as possible. And yeah, quite impressive growth that's happened over the last year. Councillor Tavendale.
Just a comment, I guess, on the employment. I think Mayor's Task Force for Jobs has certainly played a part in that, but it is great to see the unemployment rate fallen to 2.6% when it's 3.3% nationally. And I think it's just being aware of that actually does create other stresses as well, and making sure we're still attracting people into our community to keep growing our job labour market, because it's pretty tight and it's hard for people to get staff at the moment.
Yeah, good question. I just wonder, Mel, do you have any idea of how many vacancies it might be out there at the moment?
I don't have a read on that specifically, but on the Mayor's Task Force for Jobs piece, I can say that a new contract has just been signed, and it's actually got a broader scope than the previous one. So it's going to impact from 16 and upwards, and include people with disabilities. So I think that it did really well last time. So I think it's fantastic that that's going again. We did have an update through Business South and the Economic Development Group last week, and somebody from ANZ was there, and they were talking about the impact of young people leaving the district and how important it is. I think there's 125,000 young people are going abroad, and I think we'll talk about it in the ED strategy too, but it's really important now that we look for pathways for our young people, and the Mayor's Task Force is, it's a good start on that journey.
Yeah, the figures we often get are how many vacancies have been advertised, but what it doesn't necessarily say is that one advertisement for a particular position actually might be 10 people that they're needing. And yeah, anecdotally, I think there does appear to be businesses are looking for hundreds of people out there. It's a good problem in some respects, but actually, we're just not reaching our potential if we don't have those jobs filled.
Yeah. It's a national problem, and I think it's staff shortages, but it's also retaining that staff is a key issue, as we know today in the council. All businesses are really now struggling, and I think what was noticeable for me was the increase in wages that we're now starting to see as people are having to pay more to retain their staff, and obviously that's going to have an impact on profitability across the board.
Yeah, it's certainly, one of the intentions is to raise income, average incomes, and it's playing its part in that, and that is the market working. But it's making sure that equally it doesn't get priced out of particular markets. But it does, it's not a bad thing if people are earning more money, that's for sure. We'll go to Councillor Hopkins, and Mel, if you just turn your microphone off in between, thanks very much.
Thanks for the report, Mel. I'm trying to make sense of what appear on the surface of it to be conflicting figures. At the end of May, you're quoted in the ODT that you're saying that how the district has posted strong growth of 9.5% to the year to March 2022. Now we're saying that, or in this we're saying grew by 5.4% to the year June 2022, and yet a lot of the figures you quoted here are exactly the same as the ones that are cited in the May report. And it's not I'm not seeking to criticise. I'm just trying to, which is it? It'd be great. It's great if it's 5.4. Even better if it's 9.5.
Well, just back to the initial comment that was made, we are bucking the trend, and we are doing exceptionally well, growing at 5.4 versus only less than 1% nationally. It was higher in March, but those are the March annual figures. So it's looking at March, year to March this year versus last year. Now we're looking at year to June. So that's the difference essentially. So well, we've softened a bit from where we were in March, but the whole country is softened, and we're not getting the same peaks and troughs that the rest of the country is getting. And we're seeing that across a number of sectors. We're pretty steady ship. And I think it's interesting on the dairy point, the $64 million that's quoted here, that's the same as the figure that was quoted in March, because the data hasn't changed. So that's the payout that's being forecast for the year. I mean, interestingly, Fonterra's just softened its dairy forecast now because of increasing costs and supply constraints. So, you know, that will knock that $64 million down back a bit. So I'm assuming next report we'll see a difference. So.
Yeah, I think, yeah, my reading of it is it's partly a softening at this end of the year, but also in the April to June last year was probably a higher jump up in you know, from what it had been. So, you know, you take into account, you add that into the mix, and it's a wee bit of both, I believe. And yeah, it's challenging times, but yeah, we're doing pretty well overall.
What you also, just to Mayor Kirch's point, what you were seeing in March was a rebound from COVID. So of course now we've rolled on another few months from then, so it's softened. That's another reason why it's softened a bit.
Yeah. As I say, I wasn't trying to be argumentative. I was just slightly surprised that there would be so big a change in only a couple of months. But the reasons you offer are entirely plausible.
Okay, anything else from page 44? Go to 45. 46. 47. Deputy Mayor Tavendale. 48, and now you.
Just on the Whitestone Geopark UNESCO evaluation mission, we're hoping to have some results, I guess, on that on Sunday. So just looking forward to hearing a bit more, and yeah, wishing the best of luck to our team, because there's been some people in behind the scenes that have put in a huge amount of work to make that UNESCO evaluation mission go really, really well. I think our meeting at the Marae was, you know, pretty fantastic, both for council as well as for our Geopark group. And yeah, just look forward to seeing how things go on Sunday. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, there's been a wee bit of angst expressed that, you know, when's the report coming out, which I think we indicated was possibly a bit later than that, but sort of it's happening a wee bit sooner. So that's good. Fingers crossed, and all that to see how that goes. Okay, anything else? Page 48. Councillor Williams.
We just had some really good positive feedback for the communications team with the latest all the videos and everything we made for the district plan. So we had some comments last night that were really good, like saying how difficult the district plan is to actually read, but if you know, getting it across in another way can help a whole lot of frustration that's out there and a lot of misunderstanding. So great work there with the communications.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. I was going to make the same point. I think it's great to see new techniques being explored. And Taka Mandiwana has been leading that engagement piece on his contract and done a fantastic job. And Jenny Song in the comms team was instrumental for those videos. So public thanks to them, because it was a lot of hard work. But I think it's good to see new routes, channels being explored to share learning. So thank you.
Okay, page 49. 50, some of the imagery, and 51. Councillor Tavendale.
I guess on the imagery, there's a few people that did say online they were confused about whether these people were standing or not standing, which I personally thought was relatively straightforward. But you know, I understand that. But it was a nationwide campaign. But I just want to say I thought we did it incredibly well, and chose some really great people that really did lift the profile of standing. And you know, at the end of the day, the numbers of people that are standing for council, we pretty much, apart from one seat, got the full numbers and more, and our community have got some great opportunities to, you know, to make decisions, which is awesome. So yeah, I just thought it was a very well done campaign from our end.
Yeah, no, it's been good. There is that confusion, and I'll take that to National Council meeting on Friday in Wellington just to pass that on. and just, I think it possibly happened in some other districts as well. So it's that thing of if people reading quite quickly, you know, what do you stand for, and then see someone's face and take it that they're standing. But it's yeah, it's been effective, and it's helped raise awareness. People were pretty slow in getting nominations in, so it was a bit of concern, but real flurry at the end, and I think the public got some really good options in you know 3 of the wards, and obviously Brent Kells is elected unopposed in Ahuriri. So no, it's been good. Okay, nothing else on the ED report. No. So thank you very much, Mel, for joining us, and we'll now move to the health and safety update, which will finish us off with an exciting flourish. So page 52, and we just welcome Bill Nelson to the council chamber. So welcome, Bill. Good morning to you. And just basically we'll just launch straight into any questions if there are any. So page 52. 53.
Oh, sorry, Mick, just page 52. Just this reference under health and safety underneath the 3 bullet points. Staff are finding it difficult to balance competing demands for mask wearing. Community has broad views regarding continued use. This is conflated by inconsistencies within the mandates, role confusion, as some staff have been unsure of their responsibility about enforcing mask wearing. Are we requiring staff to enforce mask wearing? And what is the percentage of people who are not wearing masks? So it seems to be higher than it was, but lower here than reportedly, anecdotally, it is in larger centres.
Through the chair, Councillor Hopkins, we are not requiring staff to enforce the mandates. The only mask wearing mandate of authorised people are the police, and we are consistently telling our staff that they're not to put themselves on the line of fire to enforce the mask wearing. There are a reasonable number of people around town that are pushing their barrow about not agreeing with the mask wearing. We are taking what steps we can, and just revisiting incidents that arise to make sure that staff are still well aware that they aren't to put themselves in the firing line.
Supplementary to that.
Bill, you just turn your mic off.
Supplementary to that, we presumably would have a right to trespass or ban people. If somebody consistently came to a public facility like the pool or the library and chose to use it as a platform for a political point of view or campaign, i.e. anti-vax or whatever, and we had repeatedly requested them to do this, although we've said, and rightly so, that we're not enforcing that, and they didn't, are we in a position to say, look, sorry, there are some rules here, you've repeatedly flouted them, we don't want you back?
Through the chair, Councillor Hopkins, my understanding, and this is what confused the issue for some of the staff, is that we always as council have rights of access, and so we could use that if it suited the purposes of council to do so, but given why it was raised, we chose not to enforce those.
Okay, anything on page 53? Councillor Hopkins.
So just very quickly, Mr. Nelson, just that spike of accidents in March and April of this year, I presume is that summer on the pool? The graph.
Page 53.
Yes.
Okay, page 54. And 55. Councillor Percival.
Yeah, Bill, it's quite concerning, the numbers of incidents of abuse. I mean, the pool, we were pretty much aware of quite a few that have happened there because it's been quite public. What concerns me is the abuse under the heading other staff, which is obviously internal. Can you elaborate on that and why and how, what measures are taken to either get onto those that do the abuse and what actions taken?
Just ask Mr. Hope just to address that first.
Actually, I was going to say, I think almost all of these are in Mr. Cook's area, so it might be good for him to actually respond in relation to this and the steps that they're taking within the regulatory area.
Mr. Cook.
Thank you, through the chair. Yeah, I think it's a bit of a sad reflection on society at the moment that the abuse is increasing out there. We have a number of staff that now in their daily interactions find it necessary to wear body cameras to protect them from what happens on the street and then subsequently what is reported that happened on the street. And they can be two very different situations. We undergo regular training with the staff on how to avoid conflict situations, how to recognise when they're coming up, how to remove themselves from those situations or handle themselves in those situations. Yes, it's what we currently see. One member of the team does actually have an intimidation case heading towards court, and also a physical assault case heading towards court.
As in they were physically abused themselves. Just making sure we're on the right side.
Yes, yeah. They were abused, and one case of intimidation where the accused was sitting outside the person's house.
Yeah, things people have to deal with. Okay, no, thank you for that. Anything else on that?
Through the chair,
yes,
I'd just like to make a point of clarification for Mr. Councillor Percival. The other staff isn't staff abuse between staff. It is two other officers within the council. So that's people like your roading people, the people in regulatory, etc. So just wanted to clarify that point. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you.
And it is down from last year, from 17 to 11. Is that right? Well, that's what the numbers say. So the tendency might be, one would hope perhaps, if it was COVID related or whatever, is it on perhaps improving a tad?
No, you got to remember, it's only for 7 months versus 12.
Of course, yes. Sorry, right.
It's also reasonably well documented nationally that post-COVID has resulted in a dramatic increase in people's intolerance levels, or a dramatic decrease in their tolerance levels.
Councillor Halaleli.
So yeah, I guess just in response to that, it probably gives us an indication in terms of the community, the high level of expectation and the sense of entitlement that particular members in the community have on our staff. So I think there could be other areas that we could be helping to, do some prevention work or some support work around this. So it sounds like 2 out of the 34 incidents have gone to police, and the others have been dealt with internally. Is that what I'm hearing? And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a good thing. So it's around the psychology of our community that needs to be addressed, and the behaviour that needs to be looked at, and what is acceptable and what are we willing to tolerate as an organisation in terms of behaviour that shouldn't be accepted. So I think there's work that we could actually do, like with Stronger Waitaki and other agencies.
Mr. Nelson.
Through the chair, Councillor Halaleli, I just want to point out for this meeting that we've had to widen the de-escalation training from warranted officers right across the board. And it's been taken up quite well by our staff. And some of the incidents coming through have shown them following through on their learnings. So that's been very pleasing to see.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Nelson. Anything else, councillors? Okay, that draws that one to a close. Thank you very much for coming in, Bill. Appreciate that. That finishes all of the activity updates. So we'll close this session off. Thank you everyone who has watched so far, and thanks